In this episode, I have a chat with the art director of the design mechanism as we have a behind-the-scenes look at all those exquisite pieces of artwork that we find in everything from rulebooks to sourcebooks. Welcome to the Mythras Matters podcast, Season 1, Episode 51, Illustrations, Artists and Artwork. Hello and welcome back to Mythras Matters, a podcast dedicated to the Mythras rule set and all its supplements. As always, I'm your host Inwils and welcome to November. As the number of daylight hours change here in the Northern Hemisphere and we in the UK just gained an extra hour of sleep, we embark on the winter season of our gaming calendar. I always find that in winter there appears to be many more holidays that interrupt the gaming schedule. We have Halloween and Thanksgiving, Christmas and New Year, and in the UK we have Bonfire Night on the 5th of November. Remember the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason and plot. This is when we celebrate the foiled attempt of Guy Fawkes, who nearly blew up the Houses of Parliament back in 1605. I think that would always make an extra plot for a Luther Arkwright adventure, where the disruptors travel back in time to try to foil the capture of Guy Fawkes. I've listened to a graphic novel featuring Luther Arkwright, and just saying that makes me suddenly realise how stupid that line sounds. But I have to admit it was excellent. Maybe there is someone or a few people who would like to come onto the podcast and share their experience of the game. And talking about audience contributions, in December's episode of the podcast, in response to a request on the Tapper Talk forums, Doug and Matt will be sharing their knowledge and tips about converting games to Mythras. Definitely not one to miss. So remember, if you would like to contribute to the podcast, then why not just drop me an email or message and let me know what you would like to cover or what you would like other people to cover. We're always looking for reviews or interviews or topics, so if you are interested or have any suggestions, then do email me at inwils@gmail.com or send me a message on the various forums I frequent. I've always been fascinated by the excellent artwork that we enjoy in every publication, so I thought it was about time that I had a chat with the art director of the design mechanism. I learnt so much in this conversation and was very pleased about the design mechanism's view about AI-generated art. So, without further ado, I'll welcome Soph to the podcast.
Hi, everyone. And thank you to Ian for inviting me on the podcast. My name's Soph. I'm the art director at CDM. My job is to choose all the pictures and commission them and to find new artists and to decide what our books will look like. The words are not my problem. It's lovely. But what it looks like is my problem. And,
right.
My other things I do, I commission people to paint for us and draw, and also I manage all the contracts for art and set the deadlines. And I am always reaching out to new artists because we always want to hear from them. because we're always trying to find the right artists for each individual book, and find things that they're going to excel at. And the other thing I do a lot of research about art, about historical subjects generally, because as you know, TDM does a lot of historical settings, and when I'm writing the art direction, which is the sort of description, like the brief for the artist for each image, I have to research things like what late 15th century Byzantine, late 14th century Byzantine ships looked like.
Of course, yeah.
And whether there were candles in Babylon. The answer is no.
Fantastic. I love that. Yeah.
But the Chinese invented them, apparently. Because our readers tend to be our players are very well read, and they spot it when we get things wrong, which we don't usually.
Yeah, fantastic. So how did you get your role in the design mechanism? I'm really interested how you came to be the art director. So can you talk us through that for a while?
Sure. I've been doing this kind of thing for many years in the British UK press. Is where I trained. And back in 2019, me and some friends made a horror role-playing game that I did all the design work for, because basically just because I wanted it to happen and it was such a good idea. If that doesn't sound too arrogant, I just wanted it, I could make it happen, because I'm very good at all aspects of print design and production. And then the design mechanism became interested in the project, and they decided to join us. And then Lawrence Whitaker, the big boss, headhunted me to take over the art department here at TVM. So yeah, as I said, I trained in the press and in newspapers and magazines, which you can occasionally see little signs of. Like I like the pictures to bleed out to the edges.
Yeah, I'm not an art. I don't know a lot about art, but yeah, that sounds absolutely brilliant. So you're head of all the art that goes on in the design mechanism. Is that?
That's right. I commission it all. I find the artists. I do deals with them so that they can they'll work with us and. Inveigle them into it's one that I actually quite like. There's a few people, everyone likes getting a letter saying, would you like lots of money?
Yes.
I get to write that. I write that kind of letter quite a lot. I was doing that last week, actually.
Excellent. So can you talk us through the process then? So if Lawrence or the design mechanism are putting together a new adventure or rule set, what sort of happens? Are you in right at the beginning, or do you come in later on?
Well, two things happen. Well, I'll take the second part first. When Loz and Pete and all our other writers and editors are plotting books, as they tend to do, I have I have an idea of what projects we've got coming up over the next year, and we have meetings every so often saying, we're going to be doing, I don't know, ancient Egypt, big source book, and then we're going to be doing horrible vampires lurking in cellars, and or whatever we've got, and we have a big editorial meeting. So I've got those in the back of my mind, but back to the former point though, what happens when a manuscript comes in from the author? Lars has commissioned them to write a book, and they send their manuscript in. I get it at the same time the editors do, and the editors look at all the text and make it all lovely, and I get the manuscript at the same time, and I read it very carefully, and I try to identify the most interesting scenes that we need to illustrate, and the general feel of it. Because for instance, if we had one that was, I don't know, set in the 14th century, we might want like a illuminated manuscript type feel.
Yeah.
For instance. Also, so I'm reading it, and after I've chosen all the pictures I think we're going to be good, I write like the art direction, which is like a description of each image. It's like, so I sent you one, I believe, but it was so it says things like for the cover, it might say things like, there's a big horrible gribbly monster, blue scales, some knights wearing black 15th century plate with fluted Maximilian style and big double-handed swords are coming out to get it, and they're in a cave. There's a waterfall and a big hole in the roof because it's a pothole, and that kind of thing. It's quite detailed, because it's to make sure it matches the text. But I try to leave as much artistic freedom for the authors as possible. That's a very important thing for us.
Yeah.
And we have a brilliant community of artists that support us and we work with, that they respond to the briefs amazingly. So once I've written that, I have a chat with the author, and to make sure I've got all the details right, because people have an image in their minds,
of course,
of what their world looks like. Do their characters have there's a villain in them, and and it might be that the author thinks of them having really luscious shampoo advert type long hair, that really it sort of flicks in Timotei-like manner. No, that's kind of thing. They'll spot that, or they'll say, "Can we make them have this hair, or can we?" I thought that the streets of such and such city should be more grotty and have more rubbish around the place, and we do that kind of thing. So I talk to them quite in detail. So we make sure that we get their vision is portrayed correctly. And while all that's going on, I've had Loz will have said, how big the book's likely to be, and what our budget is for it. And when we're happy, I start talking to artists. Depending on what it is, because they've all got their different strengths and preferences.
Yeah.
So that's, for instance, one of our artists loves doing undead and is incredibly good at them. And it's like just these fiends, they're always revolting. Absolutely. I'm not going to name the person, because the readers will probably know who it is, who does the amazing undead. But he's just so good at them. He just loves them. And there's another artist we have who is really good at water.
Right.
I just love doing anything water. Anything that's in flooded caves or boats or pirate happenings or anything like that. Just love it. So I'm often, when I'm commissioning, if we've got a cover, say that's got a sea bat on it, I'll look at them and everything. I say, do you fancy this one? I offer them to the artists who like those subjects and whose best strengths are in those fields. And also, equally, when I'm looking at a book, I often think of artists that I've researched or artists that contacted us, and I think this really feels like something for Jane X, and I'll write Jane a letter and say, I've got this art direction, here's the kind of thing we're wanting. Is that interesting? And she might say, yeah. And you might say, no, I'm busy at the moment, or whatever.
Sounds absolutely brilliant. I've got so many questions. So I didn't realize, when you were saying you get the original manuscript, or so do you decide how many pictures go in it? I think it's amazing that you think of which scene. So is there a limit to that, or do you think this would be the right number? How does that work?
Well, there is a limit, because if I did as many pictures as I would like to have, The company would go broke.
And it would be a graphic novel.
And also I get told off by Loz. He would say, you can't do this.
Got you.
Yeah, I say an adventure, they're usually sort of 48 to 60 pages. So I look at that and I've got a good idea of how many we're going to need. And after a while you can tell from just reading the typed manuscript, you can tell how many book pages that's going to be. Learn to do it just by eye.
Brilliant.
So and I have an idea. Generally, for one of our like source books, there's usually about 70 to 80 pictures.
Right. That's a nice range then.
Yeah, it varies now, and it also depends because if something with a hat which say had a lot of monsters in, like a bestiary type, might have a lot of small pictures. But something that was, I don't know, more like a chapter that was more like a description of a country might have fewer pictures, but then they would be larger, like sort of landscapes and stuff like that. And so people can just get the feel of what the place looks like to be in. And sometimes it's a mixture.
Yes. Yeah, I can see how that works really well. You talked about artists. Does the design mechanism have a number of artists then? How many artists do we have that actually contribute?
How many? I mean, it's really hard to work out. Actually, it's a tough one. We've got a stable of about. They're all freelancers, apart from me, because I do some of the art myself. I do cartography and the little patterns around the edge. Sometimes some of those are mine. We've got about 30 artists in our stable that we use very regularly. But we're always, as I said earlier, we're always looking for more, because any artists out there, please email me via the Divine Design Mechanism site and send me a link to your portfolio, because I do really want to hear from you.
Sounds excellent. Yeah, and we'll confirm those details a little bit later as well, because like you say, it'd be fantastic. It's always nice to get new blood onto any team.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
I was interested whether or not there's so many different types of art in a book, because there's sort of like what I would call like the line drawing. And then right the way up to the front cover that is in full color. Yeah. Is there different sort of like styles of artists that you have? You mentioned the guy who the artist, that does undead.
He's a guy, but
all right.
yeah.
Are there sort of like people some that specialize in line art and some that
there are. I mean, there's several artists, because we do, obviously, as you know, we have lots of mono art, internal art. We do have some color, but we probably will be having more color in the future. Yeah, there are artists that specialize in line art. There's some of them like to paint in black and white. That's quite common. Ink washes or even I've forgotten the technical term for it. But there's very very black and white painting. Beside, no, that's glass. Oh well.
Well, I would have no idea, so don't worry.
Okay.
There'll be somebody shouting at the podcast player at the moment saying it's this.
They can write to me too and tell me what it is.
It'll come up in the Discord, I guarantee you.
Or I'll think about it at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
But yes, there's lots that have different specialities. All artists like their different mediums. Some of them work digitally, some of them work with traditional paint and paper, and some of them work with a mixture. I mean, so they for instance, they often draw their thing and then scan it, then they paint digitally, or vice versa. You get people like that make textures and then use them collage type way in real life. So real life is not the way to put it, in a material sense rather than a virtual sense.
So there seems to be a huge range of styles, and I was interested, where does the design mechanism sit with AI? Because that's up and coming at the moment, and I see it around, Adobe Firefly, make this picture. So where does the design mechanism sit with that?
We have a view that we don't approve of AI art, and we won't be using it. And the reason for that is it's immoral because it's stealing from artists. Also, our artists can give us, a bespoke response to, not just some prompt. Some of the, if I write like a page of description or the brief for a cover for one of our covers is usually 2 or 3 pages. Also, they're all trained on stolen art, and we don't think that should be allowed, and we'll never rip off our artists in that way, and we don't. Many other companies in the industry have similar policies. Chaosium does, I believe.
Good,
and many others do as well. We're not alone in this view, because it's just not on really, and we want to support our creative artists.
Very, very much so. I think that's a very, very strong and a very dedicated point, to support the artist rather than what you're saying. That I do believe, AI sort of like grabs from everywhere and produces something.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you can actually see who they've ripped off.
That's not good, isn't it? Not.
No, not good at all. I've tested some of these to see that kind of thing, and also, I mean, one of the other reasons we don't use it, apart from the immorality of it, is our readers deserve like unique things that only they can have. Something that's churned out by a computer, which is using other people's ripped off stuff, is just going to be stereotype nonsense. Whereas the things that our artists produce for us are exactly right. I mean, they are exactly as the author likes it, right down to the number of bolts on the bottoms of the boats. It's right, and it's also something that only we can have, and that's the only thing that's good enough for our readers.
Exactly, and I think you mentioned beforehand how much historical knowledge goes into it, and then there's this unique but almost bespoke piece of art that has been created with both the author of the publication, they've had that input, it sounds, into that artwork. So that sounds a brilliant reason, to keep that uniqueness.
Yeah, I mean, there's no, it's not really a choice, and we can't go do anything else really. I mean, it's nothing else is good enough.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's really good for readers to hear, that is the bar, and that almost like that personal affirmation of, you are always getting this sort of artwork, and that is unique and bespoke, which is brilliant.
Yeah. And it's the unique creation of the individual artist. I know them all, worked with them for a fair few years now, and some of them are become, I'm on very friendly terms with them, and they can, and some of them really are creative geniuses. They're amazing. I mean, and it's so wonderful to see. You have the brief or the text of the adventure or whatever it is, and then they just bring it to life. And it's fascinating. It really is fascinating to see. Actually, watch how it happens.
I think it's fascinating from my reader point of view, because it really sets the scene and the environment and the feel for a new rule book or an adventure or anything like that. It's almost like that the words have their place, but the artwork also has its place, and then they both seem to come together to form the final product. So say somebody is out there and they're a budding artist, and they really would like to have their work seen. What is the process there? How do they what do they need to submit, etc.?
Right. For us or in general?
I think for us, I think that'll be the
Okay.
for the design mechanism.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the best thing to do, many artists have online portfolios at places like ArtStation or on their own personal websites. That's a very good way of getting noticed, because nefarious art directors like myself are known to look at those sites to find new people to try and hire. So that's always a good start. But many artists do contact me directly. They write to me saying that, I'm an artist. I do, I specialize in, say, fantasy and character work. Here's a link to my page where you can see some of my stuff, and I then go off and have a look at it, and I will put their name on the list. It may be that I haven't got anything that's suitable for them at that present time. The following week, I will do. When I'm looking at people's portfolios, I'm looking at what they do, what they've done in the past, and the kind of subjects and styles they like. Because I'm always wanting to give people commissions that really fit.
Oh,
into their
very, very
interests.
much. I think that's a fantastic way. Yeah.
Because if they happen to really like working in ink, say, ink wash, and then I've got some pictures of horrible marshy swamps and fens that are full of revolting ghosts. I commissioned some of those last year. So I'm actually thinking of a particular book in question. I see that they love doing all this stuff, and I think, yeah, I'll offer you that, and you'll probably enjoy that.
So it's really matching their skills and style to to the text, and then sort of like publishing it. So what's your favorite style?
I tend to like traditional oils, though. It doesn't actually have to be real oils. It can be. I like line art. I kind of like old-fashioned engraving sometimes as well. I like things. It's quite dark, actually.
Yeah.
Well, that's which is probably for the best, because in our books people tend to be like going down horrible holes and
exactly,
meeting people you'd rather not meet.
And villains, and I think it's always really good as a GM, if I'm reading an adventure or a setting, I can picture what the villain looks like, or what that damp underground cellar
very much
looks
so.
like.
And that's the kind of thing I'm targeting when I'm reading the text. I'm looking for good villains and like areas which people are going to want to be able to visualize.
So what advice would you give to anybody starting out on their art career? Whether or not they want to do things like be artists for the design mechanism, or any sort of art. You've obviously had this experience. So what would be your advice to those young budding artists, or old budding artists, any budding artists?
Well, generally, you've got to be very, very active in advertising yourself, because there's a lot of competition in the market, and bringing yourself to people's attention. If there's areas that you want to work in, like for instance, RPGs or subjects you like, find publications or publishers that publish that kind of thing. Find out who their art director is. Find out who their art department is, and drop them a line.
Yeah,
that's what I would do. Also, a lot of creative artists have day jobs. Not all of them, but it's quite common. People have a wide portfolio of jobs. Like you can, there's people I know who work in several different fields of art. There's a chap that sometimes works for us who teaches art at a very grand school in the US. He's the head of the art department there. Another one of our artists is a very, very respected body artist.
Lovely. Yeah.
Only recently came into doing art that doesn't move around.
Yeah.
But which is good. Also, he never ever makes any mistakes.
Yeah. Oh, that's
so
perfect.
accurate.
Yeah.
I guess you have to be.
You don't want body art that's incorrect, don't you? You want it to be precise.
He's so good. But yeah, so people have, people often have things, they do designs for biscuit packets when, for their day job, and they're also painting dragons in the evening.
Nice.
I mean, the RPG industry is quite small.
Yeah.
There's a limited amount of business. There's enough, but you need to have a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah. And I think that it's that multifaceted approach, but also that proactiveness, and matching their personal style as well. Because with publications or books or whatever that seem to match up, would you recommend somebody to I don't know the first thing about art, I have to say this now, but is it better for them to become more specialized in a certain type of artwork and drawing, or is it better to keep everything quite generic?
Well, I wouldn't say generic, but it's good to be very flexible in what you do. I mean, you may be, some people have ended up as being the go-to guide for painting biscuit packets, which is actually quite hard to do if you think about it. Because it's got to look right when it's tubular.
Yeah.
And you get things like that, and people also, all kinds of commercial arts. You should be very flexible, but people also often, as their careers go on, fall into a niche. To use one, I know because an artist that pretty much all our readers will know, Larry Elmore, ended up being the look of D&D for many, many years.
Yeah.
He did very well at that. So people do fall into niches. But it's always good to keep your options open.
Yeah. Fantastic. I have to ask, are you a role player yourself? Do you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Player or GM?
Both. I play RuneQuest and Mythras. I also play Fate.
Yes.
I play that quite a lot. Play Casting the Runes, which is our horror game, which I talked about earlier, which is also published by TDM, but that works under Gumshoe.
Yeah.
There's
classic fantasy.
Classic fantasy. I class that under RuneQuest.
Right, got you. Yeah. So lots of enjoyment there as well. Yeah,
I used to play Call of Cthulhu quite a lot, but I don't anymore because I got sort of tired of tentacles.
Yeah. Nice. I like that. Thank you so much for spending your some of your precious time to chat to us. It's really been enlightening. I find it so interesting to see behind the scenes, and what goes on. And it's really good to know how much dedication is given to the artists and their style and what they bring to it. So thank you so much for coming along onto the podcast.
Thank you, Ian. It's wonderful to have a chat with you.
It was great to hear about all the excellent artwork that goes on behind the scenes in the art department of the design mechanism. And to everyone who has contributed to the artwork in any publication, a huge thank you. Your work makes the words burst into life and stirs everyone's imagination. Please keep up the great work. And that's it, another episode of Mythras Matters completed. Don't forget you can check out all my content by following my YouTube channel and the campaign areas on World Anvil. I really appreciate your support. And do also check out the Tapper Talk forums and the Discord, where there are loads of people sharing their ideas within discussions. So, until next time, have a great month of gaming, and I will chat to you all again in December with the episode about converting other games to Mythras. Until then, I hope all your opposed worlds succeed and provide you with a well-deserved special. Thanks for listening, everyone. See ya. Bye. The content of this podcast is covered by the Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, so please give appropriate credit if you are sharing or copying any part of this podcast. Thank you.